Thank you. So before I start, just a couple of words on TNS. There may be some folks in the room who don't know who we are. So TNS is the world's largest custom market research company. We have a local presence in 80 countries around the world. Revenue is about $2.5 billion. And we actually have millions and millions of conversations with the world's consumers for some of the biggest brands across the globe. When Natalie came to me to moderate this session, the title for the session was Print Directories in a Multi-Platform World. And to me, it seemed that we were missing some kind of a controversial antecedent to that. So I kind of thought to myself, is it the role of print directories in a multi-platform world? Or is it the challenges faced by print directories? Is it the relevance of print directories in a multi-platform world? And thinking optimistically, I settled on the opportunities available to print directories in a multi-platform world, and we'll talk about that in a sec. With that said, let's take a look at the current state and an opportunity-based view. So I just draw your attention here to the red line. That is the print yellow pages. And you can see kind of the inflection point in 2004, 2005 when it kind of crossed over with what we call the net of all types of online activities. And if you look at where we are in 2012, big dichotomy between the online, which is that orange line at the top at 75%, and the 24% for print directories. So what it tells you is, while yes, there's a huge gap, there still is 24% of the individuals who are still engaged in print directories. And I know there's been some comments already earlier in the day about the fact that print directory still is a viable business because somebody's making money off of that 24%. So just a little bit about what we do. We've been doing this study for many, many years, the intermediate shopping study. And essentially it's a nationally representative sample of individuals. And we basically asked them for all of the categories, 156 categories, I believe, which ones they've used either as a decision-making source or as a reference source. And then we asked them for all of the various other media that you see listed here. So it's been done for many, many years, which is why we've got that trend line there. I'm just going to skip through that. So here's a little bit about the opportunity. So what this slide is all about extending the reach of the media. And if you look at the bar on the red side is all about those who have used a medium but not the print yellow pages. So that's the bar on the left. In the middle is those that have used that medium and the print yellow pages. So that's about extending the reach using multiple media sources. And like any good brand, you should be using multiple media sources to reach your audiences because they're very segmented, they're very fragmented, they're very diverse. And then the last is use print yellow pages, but not any other medium. So you see there's plenty of opportunity right in that middle bar for print yellow pages to work in concert with other media choices. So we'll be talking about that today on our panel, and I'm going to kick it over to Matt.
Thanks, Emil. Hi, everybody. There's a lot of great news, really, to share about the print yellow pages story. The power of the call counts that are still coming in, the volume of call counts, and the strong return on investment are surprising, even to someone like myself who follows the research very carefully, very closely. And part of the good news story really starts with the fact that local is really cool. Right now, you hear a lot about local, hyper-local, directional media, or should I say presence, and what is the right presence strategy. So it's a cool space right now to be in. However, Yellow Pages is definitely still not cool. We've always sort of been the nerd of advertising media, and I think print Yellow Pages suffers from an image problem. There's a misperception of the value, and it's stronger now probably than ever. It's more prevalent than ever, and it's frankly probably one of the biggest obstacles that we have to overcome as an industry. YP is a fully digital and mobile company. We're building our digital and mobile solutions on our legacy of being a leader in local leads and the world's largest Yellow Pages publisher. So that's really a great advantage. It's great skill sets, and it's it's frankly something that we can leverage, that understanding this underserved market in the case of national and the national franchises and the local national type of accounts. So, and it's all part of optimizing folks' media investments. So, you know, return on advertising investment really begins with knowing who is your ideal customer. And in the case of many of the traditional print Yellow Pages categories and important demographics such as the baby boomers and seniors and smaller markets, print Yellow Pages is an important part of that investment. And just like the baby boomers, or much like the baby boomers, the print Yellow Pages is surprisingly still going very strong. It's not dying on schedule, and I'm happy to report that. And I encourage you to get familiar with the latest research. And the product is still, and actually looking good. Even Iggy is still looking good there, and still going strong. So I wanted to take just a minute to acknowledge Hank and folks like this, because everyone in this room, this is really who we work for. The folks who are, the guy who's underneath our car turning the wrench or fixing our plumbing, or up on the roof and making a deck for us. And these folks need return on their advertising dollar, and that's what we do, all of us working with the CMRs every day. And in fact, Print Yellow Pages delivers $13 in revenue for every dollar invested. That's based on really credible research, and that's quite an amazing stat. I put that up, and again, if that's not an important part of the local media mix, I'm not sure what is. So here's the really great news. At YP, we see a lot of things that are working, and working really well. Value management and call tracking. Call volumes are up, and if you've seen the latest metered ad study, just came out based on more than 35,000 advertisers. Calls are up 8% in 2012. So advertisers that kept the same ad year over year are getting 35% more calls than they were in 2009. We're investing a lot in training, and I would encourage you all to get to know Steve Sitton and Market Authority Research. It's an amazing base of 400,000 consumer interviews and some great training sales techniques that are frankly having an immediate and dramatic impact for us at YP. Our loyalty lead enhancement plan is also working for us, and thank you LSA for recognizing us with the Gold Award. I'd encourage you to take a look at that Fort Worth sweepstakes promotion that we did. It really shows that when you promote the product and get behind it, and get your sales force fired up about it, it's having a dramatic impact on usage and on retention, and most importantly on the advertisers' results, because consumers are using the book and using those coupons. And finally, bundling. We know it's critical. The future for all of us is we've got to be more efficient through marketing automation and things such as this, and product bundles, and more effective at the same time. So I've spent a lot of time over the past few months looking specifically at print. We've diagnosed what we think the biggest issue is. And frankly, it's us. It's all of us. Do we give the print product its due? Do we really support it and get behind it to the extent that it deserves? So again, I'd encourage each one of you to look in the mirror, and do we really believe? And we all have the virus. I've got it. You know, I'm getting help though. And what do we do about it? Know the story. Tell the truth. It's a great story. It's not print or digital. It's print and digital. Sell them together. And that's our story. And thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Webb. I'm president of Marquette Group. And as we celebrate 50 years of business, it is a very interesting time, as we've talked about throughout the entire day here. The reality of it is it is changing dramatically and will continue to change. And to echo Matt's comments, it is print and continues to change, and it continues to be very, very complex. But when you look at the actual core of what and is, whether that's different local or social or mobile solutions, it ultimately gets back to the same core values of Print Yellow Pages. Those core values are: you have to treat your customers right, you have to have the right content, you have to distribute that content very, very effectively, and you need to constantly tell your message over and over and over again of how well it's working. So you just have to make sure that you're making that appropriate connection. That's what we do. That's what we do with the help of many of you here in the room, and we've been doing so very successfully, but it was clearly a different time. And one reason why it's different is because you can't go to the old ways of demonstrating the value or the old ways of saying, this is the media that you need to be in today. And for a long time, it was all population-based and where those eyeballs are. Well, today, it's extremely different, and you need much more data that's suggesting that you need to be in print over here, but be in digital over here, and be in mobile in these markets, and be online here. And the reason why it's so significantly different is because if you look at the population only, and we've been, many of us here in the industry have done this, you're going to get very, very different information. And when you look at this and you start to go below population, you're going to recognize that two cities that might look very appropriate on paper and very similar are extremely different. And what that requires is for us to make sure that we are very efficiently telling that print and strategy. Because it is not just a print only, it is not just a digital only, and what we need to do is get over the perceptions related to those in the CMO suite, those national advertisers that don't want to talk about print yellow pages. They need to know that it's an and strategy. And what you'll see is making sure that we leverage and optimize the paid, owned, and earned media that encompass a whole series of directional marketing solutions. That's the story that we have to tell. And when we tell that story, you get wonderful case studies like this. You get the opportunity to look away and come up with an entirely new strategy that is not focused in on the media, but it's taking everything from the consumer's perspective. And if you talk to an advertiser, you partner with the people that are here in the room today and take that consumer perspective on when I am looking for a product or service, where am I looking? And I represent a whole host of different people. I might be using a mobile device. I might be using a printed yellow page product. And that's why this and strategy is so critical. And when you do so, I think you can get the results that you're looking for.
Oh, thanks, Eric. My name's Dave Wolf. I'm with Link Media 360. There we go. My name's Dave Wolf. I'm with Link Media 360. I think we got the mic going okay. What we are is a directional marketing agency, CMR, as well as we kind of do a lot of interactive services. Specifically, I was told to kind of keep it to one slide, but I thought, what I'd try to do is just sort of encapsulate the challenge, sort of with the printed product in the marketplace kind of today, kind of where we saw it seeing going in the future. And really, I kind of broke it down, sort of looking at kind of issues, challenges, and action steps. So I think, the key challenge, and especially kind of that Eric touched on a little bit, is kind of the perceived value or the lack of value in some areas that print yellow pages delivers. And I think the challenge in sort of today's marketplace, especially if it's become so skewed, is there's so many different kind of products, platforms, hundreds of different ways to kind of connect with the consumer. And I think, really what the challenge is sort of the ability, sort of for consumers and how they behave and research and acquire products, be it online or through print. Really kind of the key challenge, that I kind of face, or when it comes to sort of the printed product or the way that we look at it in sort of the client scope is really kind of convincing clients of the lead generation potential. And sort of, one way that's a great sort of way we've been able to address that and where kind of it provides sort of that visibility and transparency is, kind of in the tracking that allows you to sort of show the efficacy of the printed product. Specifically, the other challenge that we all kind of face, and I think is definitely endemic of marketing and marketing managers, is kind of the turnover and sort of everything from sort of marketing managers, product managers, the chief marketing suite, where sort of the lifespan of somebody in that role is anywhere from 12 to 24 months. And sort of what that creates is kind of a client touch point that's kind of usually a younger and probably a lot more predisposed to sort of the sort of online media channels and really has no familiarity with print and sort of uses their behavior as kind of a proxy of how the population as general sort of behaves. And then I think, the other challenge that they sort of translate is just the perception that nobody uses it in the marketplace. So those, kind of are kind of the main issues and challenges I see. Is in terms of, what action steps and what I think that, we've done kind of in, in ourselves and looking at a sort of micro process and then sort of, macro across sort of the national sales channel as an agency is sort of, kind of things that we've done of migrating the print from, say, a subscription product to something that's performance-based or call-based, where you're kind of removing the barrier of the sort of upfront cost. The second part of it is, definitely lead tracking, which I think provides that transparency and ROI, where you can really provide the results back to sort of the terminal value of the phone call and if it converted to the transaction for the client or advertiser. Another thing that's been really interesting that we've kind of found is leading with sort of the interactive suite and sort of integrating print in the back end, as opposed to kind of historically sort of how we've sort of looked at it is sort of leading with kind of print, kind of as the onset, and then sort of as it's migrated to interactive is trying to kind of back into those services. And just, as us an example, like the last engagements we've brought on have been everything from sort of website development to sort of a social media engagement, but then we sort of backed into sort of the CMR services after sort of getting in kind of the door on that front. Specifically as it relates to the publisher suite, and something that I think Matt and his team and some of the other publishers have done a good job with, but I think needs to evolve, is really bundling the solution and really positioning print as one of the facets of the sort of directional media or lead generation solution that you sell with mobile, print, online display, and really whatever that solution is, driven sort of based on the client's target audience and sort of the markets that they're targeting. Specifically what the publishers asked us and said, hey, like what would you guys kind of recommend really to ensure sort of the viability of print kind of longer term, and what steps would work, and just some recommendations that I have is definitely allow for deeper discounts in the print. Believe me, I understand it's really easy to say that up here and ask for somebody to give away their product, but one of the things that I found is once an advertiser leaves the print product, they're not coming back. So my recommendation would be is even if you're losing money on sort of a year-over-year product, or you're not returning sort of the previous revenue of the product, let the advertiser stay, because it's going to ensure they're going to stay with you. And if they're at a heading, it's probably going to ensure that their competitors stay there too. Excuse me, and just kind of continue the life cycle of the product has a relevance sort of in the client's directional media campaign. Another thing that's been really successful is using sort of interactive buys, where we have a new client that does an interactive buy and doing a match where you're allowing the interactive advertiser to apply a credit that they could use in a print publication, but it just gives more lead source at the end of the day for the campaign in general. We found that that's been sort of really successful, and again with sort of audience segmentation, where it allows them to cover more of the marketplace, where they're covering the consumer that uses the print, where they're sort of also at the same time covering the consumer that's using sort of online and mobile search, and at the end just giving you the advertiser a better ROI or return on the investment, and the chance to sort of nurture that relationship as sort of a long-term advertiser. Another thing, and again, I know kind of Matt alluded to, is just broadening the scope of services. I think is a great idea, because it just allows you to deepen the pool with the advertiser or clients in terms of what you can offer them, and really bring in more value from a lead standpoint. And again, just as the last part of the process is just simplification of the fulfillment or placement process, I think is key. One of the challenges that you sort of have at the sort of executional level at sort of agencies like ours is the ability to actually provision and conclude a buy and actually sort of get it into the media. So anything that can be done to sort of make that a process more efficient, I think would be incredible, ensuring not just more revenue on the publisher side, but allowing for more aggressive ways to kind of bundle print in and ensure it as sort of an ongoing part of the portfolio.
Thanks. Eric, I have a question for you. So as a CMR representing national advertisers, what's it like when you're talking to a national advertiser and you're wanting to talk about the print media, and what are the kind of tools and tactics that folks like Matt or Dave could bring to you that would make it more easy for you to overcome the barriers that you might encounter in that kind of conversation?
Number one is all about performance. And as long as the partnership with the agency and the publisher are doing the right things to test the media, that really takes the conversation right to where it should go. And the heart of it is the product performing or is it not? And then depending on that answer, then you can come up with a couple of strategies that was alluded to earlier in terms of bundling or augmenting a certain lead, number of leads because they are declining in the print, but they're perhaps not declining nearly to what the perception is. So with the performance, with the information about exactly where these calls are coming from, I think you have a real opportunity to stand up and really be heard. And when you can do that, especially when you can do that with an additional set of products and services to help augment that lead volume, you can really engage in good conversations.
Great. So Matt and Dave, what are some of the tactics, some of the tools that you'd bring to someone like Matt that you found to be effective, and maybe some of the things that you're considering that you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, I'll echo what Eric said. First of all, we refer to it as value management. It's built a lot around call tracking lines, but as well as clicks and helping calculate ROI. That has to be across the suite of products. So really, print is the only product that we sell that's tied to a 12-month contract. So the whole relationship with the advertiser is really changing. So what we see in our local force, which is a big part and very similar to many of our national advertisers, is a different approach. It's year-round. It's a consultative, multimedia approach. And so frankly, it's tools to support that value management, and it's not Cleveland is closing in June,
Right.
and I'll see you next June.
Right.
It's a year-round relationship based on lead management, and that's completely different than what we have done in the past. It's a much more high-touch, consultative type relationship. So we're partnering, frankly, and working with companies like Link Media and Marquette really to build that and change the model. Just a quick note on that. Part of the challenge is we had a low-touch, high-margin, and high-value kind of directional media. That's changed, but the good news is as you broaden the suite of products, you're able to raise the average sale, and that makes it, at least what we're seeing is, it makes more sense then that you can afford to have a rep in the market year-round and calling on the advertiser multiple times because they're managing a much bigger book of business, and there's not a lot of people that can do this for those highly local businesses that really need help managing their media plans.
But real quick, you bring up a very good point in terms of margins being squeezed, and obviously that has shifted greatly over the past decade. And the reality of that is that forces all of us to become much more efficient and really help produce easier ways for product fulfillment and certainly reporting. And the performance reporting is so critical. And if that is not an efficient process with correct and accurate data, that just makes all of our worlds much more difficult. So I guess I just continue to urge, and I know we've had interactive roundtables and other discussion of what we need to be doing as an industry and as a group to deliver that value. And again, the more we can make it efficient and the more we can demonstrate really good dashboarding and performance reporting, the better it is going to be for everybody. Because now you're dealing with not just one product, but you're dealing with a whole suite of products. And by nature, that's going to make things less efficient.
That sounds like probably the number one topic of conversation we have just about every day. And so when I said about building out those solutions, it is in the technology and information support also that goes with it.
And we're seeing progress, but just it's always good to send that reminder, especially while I have you here on stage and you can commit to all these things that we're going to do together.
He's going for the close there, right?
Absolutely.
So what's the role of brand building? What should the association do to help build the brand? What should the various publishers do to help build the brand? Because I think that's part of the story as well, right? Because you've got a convincing job to do, and while you can have ROI and other things as well, you still are kind of going against a pretty strong headwind there. So what do you feel the role of brand building is? What's the role your business brings in terms of brand building? The association as well, I think, has a role to play there.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of value, and I know YP and Matt's team's done, sort of a good job of promoting their brand, and I think that's, kind of important. I think with all the choices and sort of the different slivers of sort of lead generation platforms out there, I think to have a brand that connects with the consumer, but also and sort of distills what its value level, how its differentiation, and sort of how it's going to help you generate leads, I think is really crucial, because at the end of the day, kind of the holy grail in every problem we're looking to solve is we're just looking to deliver leads for clients at the lowest possible price, as many as possible, and whatever way, in whatever media it makes sense for them and helps them convert the most. And I think, from a branding standpoint, that, kind of messaging and sort of understanding what the challenge is, especially on the SMB side, I think is, definitely a key that would allow a brand, like YP, and I know they've done some work as well, as there was sort of the super media promotion, I think, with that they've done with sort of the cape and the character, which I thought was, kind of interesting. But I think that went a long way to sort of, building the brand and the relevance and sort of what problems it's trying to solve and how it's going to drive leads for businesses.
I think it's vital. I mean, we are, to your point of kind of swimming upstream, there is a brand issue, right? I mean, there's a credibility issue when a Yellow Page publisher or a Yellow Page CMR wants to talk about the new world of digital. And so the more that we can build the brand around the success that we're having today with a new portfolio of products and services, the easier that conversation can be. But it still is going to be an opportunity, though, I think, to build the brand based on performance. And we know so much about the local space, right? For 100 years in print Yellow Pages, you've been talking to local advertisers or national advertisers at the local level, and those same tenets have not changed. So the ability to ensure that we can overcome that credibility issue of being in the old world by demonstrating performance in the new world, I think is the absolute best way to build a brand.
So, at YP, obviously this is a critical issue for us, and we're a brand new brand ourselves, and just standing up the company and now really focusing on building that brand. But it's, we're in the market every day promoting the brand, and what you see, first of all, there's, I think, a B2B aspect in national that involves getting to other decision makers, frankly, than somebody who was handling the listing and directional media piece of it, because it is a suite of products and it goes well beyond just print and directional. But a lot of our campaigns are really very local and partnering with local advertisers and sort of in the market sports media promotions, and you're going to see us translating that now to national brands. We've identified that people who are strong Yellow Pages users are doers. They like to get things done, and we're about partnering with other national brands to target that audience and convey that message. So I think can really energize the brand about what local search media is about.
Yeah, when Neil and Greg were talking about, small businesses getting 20 to 30 calls a week, that is, so much confusion. So, where does the consumer go to make a decision, right? So their hook is to go to that which is familiar, and that's where strong brands have tremendous potential, tremendous promise. So you've got a real stake in making sure that happens for the CMRs to make it a lot easier and for the small, medium-sized businesses. And we've got a couple of minutes remaining, and we'd love to get some questions from the audiences for any of the folks up here. And so if someone would like to do that. Question right here in front. There's one in the back, one in front.
So, Matt, let's say you've now been promoted. You're president, CEO of YP Holdings. What are you going to do to make print Yellow Pages cool again?
Well, I think we're doing a lot of the right things, and I'm not sure about making print Yellow Pages cool. It's never really been something that's going to get that type of awards and recognition. So I think we got to really focus on the fundamentals of, first of all, as Eric said, the future of our business depends on marketing automation and making it efficient, and then training folks on this value story. Of course, building the brand with media and advertising, but if people know this value story and the more metered ads that we can get out there and get in every advertiser's hands, you can't argue with the value. And really, the smart advertisers and agencies who are building their business around this, in a highly efficient way and optimizing the total media investment, they're winning. And we see lots of advertisers coming back to print, frankly, that fell out or went out during the Great Recession and are saying, you know what, I think I made a mistake. You know, it may be surprising, but the value is still there. So I would build out the technology stack as we are doing, build the brand as an association, by the way, or as everyone in the local search agency, and focus on value management and bundling.
There's a question right here.
So when you have less advertisers in your print book, this is for Matt, do you find that that's more effective because there's only 1 or 2 plumbers now instead of having 10, maybe 5 years ago?
It's an opportunity, but I think in sort of a big fish, small pond theory, but when you really peel it back, that's really overstated. If you look at the metered ad study, and Dennis Fromhoser will tell you, I think it's something like 10 or 20% of the ads at a heading, in any heading, get 50 or 60% of the calls, and it's because of content. So if you're talking to an advertiser that's not getting more calls, because on average, we're getting 35% more calls. If you're not getting more calls, it's probably more of a content. So yes, it's an opportunity to stick, prices have come down, calls have gone up. What other media is delivering that type of ROI?
And just in terms of, I guess, your customer or the advertisers, do you see the difference more in geographies, whereas the rural, suburban versus metropolitan, or is it usage by age
I would
groups?
really defer to the agencies who are metering the ads and dealing with the client. Many that I talk to say the rural and small market is overstated. They're looking at call counts, and they are coming in from the big cities still. So,
Yeah, but there are some clear differences by geography. And I think in the example that I showed, on paper they look very, very similar, but they are very different in the fact of how they utilize media, and that needs to be taken into account. And unfortunately, that's a huge database-driven solution, but when you can do it efficiently, it gives you a great competitive advantage. But there are clear differences between an urban market and a rural market.
Last one for me. Where do you think print will be in 10 years for any of you guys? Where will print be in 10 years?
That's a tough question. But I think it still will have a role to play in the marketplace. Like realistically, I think like the right approach to give it the most success is to approach any kind of client's problem and sort of, as Eric kind of alluded to, in sort of a media agnostic way that, 2 similar markets but really different in terms of how they consume media. And there's no question that there's sort of a secular change going on, but probably I'd imagine the future of the print will probably sort of monitor or kind of follow the path of Eric's example, where some markets, the publication may not have a lot of relevance in sort of 10 years, or there may not be a marketplace where it's economically efficient to sort of distribute a publication, but other markets where there's a lot of sense and a lot of upside and a lot of usage of the product, where it makes a lot of sense from a consumer standpoint in bringing in leads for local or national advertisers.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I think the product will likely be redefined from a 12-month deliver to every doorstep. So if we think of print differently, what is print better at? And for example, the Fort Worth sweepstakes promotion, we did a coupon overruns, a book of coupons, and people are using them. And in fact, some of our national advertisers are taking a closer look at print just because of the redemption that they're seeing in one market. So I think there's a lot of evolution that can happen in the print product to keep it relevant even to younger demographics, and perhaps it's a targeted product that's mailed. This is my own personal mission. So.
We got the please wrap it up sign here, so I want to first of all thank the panel. I think they did a great job, and thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amy. Thanks.